نحب نذكركم باللي ثم قضايا أخرى موازية وفي نفس الأهمية متاع اللي قاعد يجرى تو في الشرق الأوسط، ما هيش أقل أهمية ولكن مغضوض عليها الطرف. ولأني أمريكا وإسرائيل المجرم متاع الحرب هذه والمجرم اللي قاعد يعمل في اللي مساكر هذوما، الدول اللي قاعدة ترمي في الكلام تو حتى حد ما تجرأ وتكلم ونعتهم بالصباع.
Wer hat den Ersten Weltkrieg gemacht? Die Muslime? Den Zweiten Weltkrieg? Die Muslime? Wer hat die Atombombe auf Hiroshima geschmissen? Die Muslime? Wer hat 20 Millionen Aborigines in Australien umgebracht? Die Muslime? Wer hat über 100 Millionen Indianer in Nordamerika platt gemacht? Muslime? Über 50 Millionen Indianer in Südamerika platt gemacht? Muslime? Wer hat 180 Millionen Menschen aus Afrika als Sklaven gebracht, von denen 77% unterwegs gestorben sind und heute auf dem Friedhof des Atlantischen Ozeans liegen? Muslime? Nein, keine Muslime.
الإرهاب يا سيدي، علاش الناس سلطت الضوء على داعش؟ مسك الإرهاب اللي قاعد يتعمل على غزة وعلى المسلمين في كافة بقاع الأرض. علاش نسيتوا هيروشيما وناكازاكي، قنبلة ذرية اللي هبطتها أمريكا على ناس مدنيين وأبرياء في اليابان؟ علاش نسيتوا الإجرام والاعتداءات اللي قاعدة توقع في سوريا، قتل المدنيين اللي يقوم به النظام تاع بشار تاع فشار؟ علاش الناس سلطت الضوء على التنظيم الدولي؟ علاش؟ سؤال يفرض نفسه.
What can you tell us about ISIS and what are its origins?
Well, actually, there's an interesting article that just appeared a couple of days ago by a highly qualified analyst, Graham Fuller, CIA background, one of the leading intelligence and mainstream analysts of the Middle East. And the title is "The United States Created ISIS." This is one of the conspiracy theories, the thousands of them that go around the Middle East, but this is another source. This is right at the heart of the U.S. establishment. Now, he hastens to point out that he doesn't mean the United States decided to put ISIS into existence and then funded it. His point is, and I think it's accurate, that the United States created the background out of which ISIS grew and developed. Part of it was just the standard sledgehammer approach. Smash up what you don't like. In 2003, the United States and Britain invaded Iraq, major crime. Just this afternoon, the British Parliament granted the government the authority to bomb Iraq again. The invasion was devastating to Iraq. Iraq had already been virtually destroyed, first of all, by the long, decade-long war with Iran, in which, incidentally, Iraq was backed by the United States, and then the decade of sanctions, which were described as genocidal by the respected international diplomats who administered them, and both resigned in protest for that reason. They devastated the civilian society. They strengthened the dictator, compelled the population to rely on him for survival. It's probably the reason he wasn't sent on the path of a whole stream of other dictators who were overthrown. Finally, the U.S. just decided to attack the country, 2003. The attack, it's compared by many Iraqis to the Mongol invasions of 1,000 years earlier. Very destructive, hundreds of thousands of people killed, millions of refugees, millions of other displaced persons, destruction of the archaeological richness and wealth of the country back to Sumeria. And one of the effects of the invasion was immediately to institute sectarian divisions. Part of the brilliance of the invasion force, its director, Paul Bremer, was to separate the sects, Sunni, Shia, Kurds, separate them from one another, set them at each other's throats. Within a couple of years, there was a major sectarian conflict incited by the invasion, very brutal. You can see it if you say, look at Baghdad. If you take a map of Baghdad, say in 2002, it's a mixed city. Sunni and Shia are living in the same neighborhoods, they're intermarried. In fact, sometimes they say they didn't even know who was Sunni, who was Shia. It's like knowing whether your friends are in one Protestant group or another Protestant group. There are differences, but it was not hostile. In fact, for a couple of years, both sides were saying there'll never be Sunni-Shia conflicts. We're too intermingled in the nature of our lives, where we live, and so on. And by 2006, it was a raging war. Out of that conflict then was spread to the whole region. By now, the whole region is being torn apart by Sunni-Shia conflicts. And out of such conflicts, the natural dynamics of them, of a conflict like that, is that the most extreme elements begin to take over. And they had roots. Britain, before the United States, had typically preferred radical Islamism to secular nationalism. And when the U.S. took over, it essentially took the same stand. And the conflicts that were engendered by the U.S. sledgehammer that smashed up Iraq and has now spread everywhere. This attack on the region by the United States and Britain is the source of where this thing originates. That's what Fuller meant by saying the United States created ISIS. It's almost automatic. It's true in neighborhoods. It's true in international affairs, and the dynamics are perfectly evident. And that's what's happening. That's where ISIS comes from.
Take a look at Iraq. There is at least 1 million, probably even close to 2 million dead. We invaded that country, destroyed it, created millions of orphans, millions of refugees, and never even so much as apologized for that. Let's go back to Vietnam, where we dropped 20 million bombs, more than all of World War II combined. We have destroyed so many countries. We have tortured and killed and maimed and raped around this planet. Who in the hell in their right mind would consider the United States or the West in general to be in any position to punish anybody? Well, we don't operate under international law. What we have is the color of law, the law of the jungle, in which the rich and the powerful basically determine what goes and what doesn't go. Iraq is a perfect example of that. Why isn't Tony Blair and George Bush rotting away in a prison cell for the rest of their lives? Because the law is not being applied. These are war criminals, and they should be in prison for the rest of their lives, if not executed, if their own rules were adhered to for their own crimes. Not only that, but we need to really understand the truth here. First off, all of these players, these politicians, are nothing more than puppets. They don't serve the people. There is no real democracy. They really serve the rich and powerful who run the world, and that would be the bankers who control the money supply. The bankers, of course, make huge amounts of money. Whether they make bad investments or not, wars are great for them, and ultimately they control the politicians, and that is why we see these policies. Obama and Cameron are nothing more than puppets who read the script, and the script is, we need another war, because they're nothing more than prostitutes and nothing more than minions for the powers that be. Well, the Greater Israel Project is all about destabilizing surrounding nations, ultimately in pursuit of this dream of Greater Israel, from the Euphrates down to the Nile, all the way over to the Eastern Mediterranean. This is the dream of these psychopaths, and so destabilizing governments, creating sectarian strife is all part of that menu and all part of the design to create Greater Israel. So that goes, that's self-evident. But then again, you know what? We, the West, the United States in particular, Israel and Britain, are the biggest terrorists on the planet. This is nothing more than a group of terrorists working together, each playing one different role, but all of them working together for the same goal, which is to maintain this hideous and sick and twisted, unjust world that we have, which is a perpetual state of war. Always one illusion, one boogeyman after another. But the fact is, Obama is nothing more than a puppet war criminal, just like his predecessor and every other U.S. president before him. So please don't tell people out there that the U.S. is not involved. It's directly involved, and it is arming people who are absolute psychopaths. And those that are in charge want another war. And part of that is what we discussed earlier, the Greater Israel Project, to destabilize any Arab regime which might have any kind of autonomy and self-determination. Any regime in the Arab world that is not an absolute puppet cannot be tolerated. And who are the nations that we target? Those that are not puppets. Simplicity and hypocrisy of the United States and the West can't even be measured. It is so enormous. And these mouthpieces, such as this gentleman in Washington, is only doing a disservice to himself and his country. And the fact is that American sons and daughters will get involved in this yet again, and these chicken hawks who are pretending to care about the Syrian people are going to be sacrificing not their own sons and daughters. I would like this man to send his sons and daughters and his grandchildren off to Syria when this turns into a greater conflict, because this is what we're flirting with, is a world war. A third world war. This is not a joke. We are flirting with a third world war on the basis that apparently we care so much about the Syrian people, just like we care so much about the Iraqi people and the Afghani people. The only people that buy this sort of stuff are either bought-off prostitutes or the dumbest of the dumb. Also led to believe that Assad is the dumbest idiot dictator on the planet now, isn't he? Because he invited UN inspectors to come in, and he brought them in on the very day that they come in. He decides to attack his own people 10 miles away from where the inspectors arrive. This is beyond ridiculous, and the only people that buy this, again, are bought-off prostitutes or the dumbest of the dumb. Sacrifice more of your American sons and daughters for Israeli wars, for Zionist wars. Are you going to continue to do that? Because you are not a patriot. You are in fact aiding and abetting the terrorists you supposedly think you're fighting against. And those Americans who are waking up to this, I hope to God, in the military in particular, that you refuse your orders. And this is why the people of America who are refusing to buy this nonsense, the overwhelming majority do not support any kind of attack on Syria. And in those in the military, I know that the powers that be are very, very frightened that high-ups within the military will refuse the orders. And I hope this is exactly what happens if an attack on Syria occurs.
إذا كانوا هم يحاربوا لتكون كلمة الله هي الأعلى، ولرفع الضيم ورفع المهانة والذل على المسلمين، نتجند وما عنديش حتى مشكلة وما عنديش مزية، بالعكس حاجة تفرحني. وإذا كان هم ناس مستعملين وناس موظفين بالوكالة، إن شاء الله ربي يهدهم، وإن شاء الله نكون من الناس اللي تحارب ضدهم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.